Peggy 16.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Battlefield Bootcamp. This time I'm joined by resident expert Toby, and today we're going to be discussing offensive tactics in jets. But Toby, there's more than one type of jet, isn't there?
Yeah, there's quite a few. We've got fighter jets like the F-18, ground attack like the A-10, and there's also the VTOL as well that's come from the Kargan expansion pack.
Right, so the first thing I want to do when I get up in the sky is clear it of enemy aircraft. That way I'm safe, the guys on the ground can do their job. What's the best loadout to get that done?
My personal favourite for air-to-air combat is using air radar, air-to-air missiles and flares.
Alright, so why air radar and air-to-air missile combo?
Basically it just gives you an early indication of where enemy aircraft are. It can allow you to track onto them, and air-to-air missiles just allows you to engage at a longer range.
So basically you're going to go to hunter-killer mode really?
Yeah, definitely. You can get either above or below, preferably behind them, use your air-to-air missiles, make them scared, and then if they miss you can close in and use your guns.
Right, so basically your rockets are to scare them, get the drop on them. You might even get a cheeky kill if they're reloading their flares, and then you use your main gun to get the kill.
Yep, without a doubt, perfect tactic for me anyway.
Right, so let's go into more detail.
Okay, with the guns, that's where a lot of people start to have problems. The first thing for me to do is always to make sure my positioning is correct. Ideally, if you find a target, you want to try and get behind them and above them as much as possible. It allows you to track them a lot more easily and keep an eye on them if they try and turn away from you engaging. Now, with the guns themselves, you'll notice there's a crosshair in the middle of the big circle in the middle of your HUD. Now, what you need to do is something we call leading, and that's where you aim slightly in front of the target depending on your speed and your turning circle. Now, if you're directly behind a jet and they're both travelling in the same direction, it's not really a problem. You aim on them as you normally would firing any gun. But if you're in a turning fight, you really need to put your crosshair in front of the target. A good rule of thumb for me is, depending on the size of your TV screen, a thumbprint.
Airspeed's really important. I find when I'm dogfighting I need to leave suitable distance behind someone so that if they do turn I can air brake into them. If I'm afterburning straight up the back of them, it's going to get a bit messy. I could end up being the one that gets shot down.
Definitely. Airspeed is probably one of the most important things when it comes to dogfighting. If you're in a turning dogfight especially, or you're simply just trying to track your target, you've got to keep an eye on the airspeed. Now obviously if your left trigger is going to reduce your airspeed, that's your air brake. So if people use that to kind of control their turn and make sure the target stays in sight, they're going to end happy. Use your right trigger and your left trigger in coordination with each other to kind of balance out your airspeed. The tightest turn that you can make in the game is if you keep your airspeed between 290 and 310 kilometers an hour, and then you're in for a good time because you can pretty much outturn anybody doing those speeds.
So you mentioned the speeds, they are actually visible in the HUD as well.
Yeah.
So you don't have to make a guess, which is pretty cool.
No, you can keep an eye on it. It's top left-hand corner of the HUD. You'll see the readout there. Just keep an eye on it. If you keep the speed between 290 and 310 when you're turning, that'll make the tightest turns, and you can just reduce and increase accordingly.
So what would you use the afterburner for personally?
Afterburner for me is if I'm gaining height or gaining altitude, your airspeed reduces naturally anyway because gravity. So click your afterburner in and that'll keep your speed going. Also afterburners for running away and simply just to catch up with a target that's at a greater distance than you.
Yeah, I mean I've found also with a bit of practice you can actually fire off the afterburner after using your air brake in a tight turn to give you a boost off as well. Yeah. Once again to try and maintain that leading aspect when you are gunning them down.
Definitely, yeah. It all comes down to the situation at the time and depending on what the other enemy jets are doing, but without a doubt airspeed is one of the key things to winning a dogfight.
Right, let's move on to the heat seekers. What's your 2 cents on them?
Heat seekers are really good for engaging enemy jets at a greater distance than your guns, or simply if you can't track them with your guns and they're moving too sharply or whatever else. Just to simply get the lock on, it allows you to track them easier, and you've got a decent chance of scoring at least a hit, which will send them off kilter, and you can then finish on with the guns.
What a lot of people don't know about the heat seekers is if you look onto someone with IR flares, you can fire one rocket off, let them fire the chaff, and then fire the second one off to damage them. Have you had any success with that?
Yeah, definitely. One rocket is more than enough to either disable or severely damage a jet, enough for you to score a critical hit with guns or whatever else. The one good hit with a rocket will reduce an enemy jet to around 45% health. If they're using afterburners or a sharp turn and the rocket doesn't score a good hit, they'll go down to about 55. So either way, you're doing some pretty good damage with just that, and 2 rockets with a good hit is obviously an instant destroy.
So out of the 2, main gun and rockets, what do you think is the better choice?
For me personally, I prefer guns over the rockets anytime. Rockets can have some setbacks, and you can get a bit of tunnel vision with the rockets where you rely on them too heavily, where you could just do the same amount of damage a lot quicker with guns themselves. Until people are kind of really au fait with the guns, then yeah, by all means use a mixture of both. Use one rocket to take the damage down and finish them off with guns, and you'll be getting kills in no time.
Before we go then, any last tips for the air-to-air combat?
Just a few quick ones. Firstly, play air superiority. It will really help getting used to using your rockets and guns in unison, and basically just getting into dogfights is really going to help you with that. If you play hardcore or you don't really like jumping to third person a lot, then if you press down on the D-pad, it'll allow you to have a free look around the cockpit, which allows you to track targets a lot faster than jumping in and out of third person all the time. It's actually really helpful.
That's all we've got time for on Battlefield Bootcamp. We'll see you next time.